Journal number 1, Language 7, Roger Rivera. I have been told that we have to do a recap of what we did through the semester, and that's what I plan to do. So, undoubtedly, our first unit was about alternative pedagogies, and we started with the Waldorf-Steiner approach and read numerous works by Steiner, Waldorf education and anthroposophy, the spirit of the Waldorf school, education as a force for social change, and practical advice to teachers from Steiner. Mainly, I have a couple of quotes from practical advice to teachers. The first thing to do is to draw their attention, referring to the students, to the reasons they are there in the classroom. Draw attention to the fact that they have come to school. No teaching can flow in the right channels unless it is accompanied by a certain respect for the previous generation. And talks about respect, inherited respect in the Waldorf pedagogy. We also read spiritual science and pedagogy. It is the will that forms the basis of this desire to imitate, not the intellect. The intellect develops from the will much later. Talks about the children's motivation to learn. We allow education to be permeated by a certain aesthetic artistry. This realm is the supposed starting point for Waldorf. The Waldorf Steiner approach based primarily in the anthroposophic schools founded in New York City in 1875. Some people have argued perhaps that they are theosophic, that their spiritual science is somewhat of a contradiction, but their approach to pedagogy, it is revolutionary, to say the least. Another quote from Spiritual Science and Pedagogy. Future pedagogy will attempt first to derive the intellectual element and the illustrative material from their distic. We can best take into account the interaction of the principles of authority and imitation if we approach this child artistically. Something of the imitative lies in their distic. All these things are very interesting. Took me by storm this unit. I knew some things about anthroposophy and Montessori and Waldorf, and I was really glad to deepen my understanding of this pedagogies. It's a little bit of wind, my papers are flying around. So from Steiner, we can say that Waldorf considers viewing as a skill. We also read something called the Lecture 3 and Lecture 4. In Lecture 3, some of the quotes that I gather where the future requires that we base general education upon concepts that can serve as a foundation for imaginative thoughts, not just upon ideas taken from science or industry. In the future, it's another one, we will be unable to properly interact socially if we do not teach people imaginative thoughts, concepts that can affect human feeling much differently than the abstract natural scientific concepts of cause and effect, force and material. We cannot comprehend the social value of human needs through abstract concepts. We can comprehend it only through human feeling permeated by an attitude arising from the imaginative thinking. I can avoid to somewhat consider this atavistic, because the affirmations were made in the text about the stupidity of human labor, in the claim that an understanding is only achievable through inspired concepts such as spiritual science, seem to be lacking in substance. This compulsory belief in the Waldorf theory that these spiritual achievements can be only be reached through spiritual exercise seems to be a little bit too esoteric for my understanding. So that is the Waldorf take on it. Then we moved on to we cannot move away from the Waldorf take without talking about eurythmy. Maybe I'm showing my age, but there was a band growing up, Eurythmics, and I remember reading an interview and them talking about this philosophy, and I found it so new age back then in the mid '80s, and now I finally understand what they were talking about. I looked into philosophical movements just to find that eurythmic, what they were talking about, and never could. And now I know it's a pedagogical term instead of a philosophical stance. And it has been said that eurythmy is visible speech. That was a controversial affirmation, and we had to discuss on it during class. Eurythmy is a disciplined art of movement of the arms and body that visibly expresses the vowels and consonants of speech and the tones and intervals of music melody, the visible equivalent of movement of the musical phrase or the spoken word. This is all good and dandy, thinking, feeling, willing. And I think that with early age children, it might work great as well as adolescents. It will have to be a real undertaking, but it seems that as a therapy and as it's an artifact, a pedagogical artifact developed for the sole purpose of developing fully. It is outstanding. First, in the first grade, children are led from natural play to form movement. These exercises help to enliven the faculties of listening and speaking. In the second grade, except the forming of the movements is more exact. Third grade, eurythmic movements become more precise. The content and inner beauty of language and poetry is stressed. Alliteration. Fourth and fifth, they work more individually in the fourth and fifth grades. Foundation for current and future geometry lessons that helps to give a clear and conscious relationship to space. Sixth, seventh, and eighth, no interpretative eurythmy is encouraged as yet. They enter more consciously into the inner beings of the movements of music and speech. As it is characteristic for the alternative pedagogies, they share in common with Montessori is to give enough time to develop naturally. There's not a set procedure, as you could hear. Different age children have different capabilities within eurythmic, and that was outstanding to find out more about that. And then we move to the fourth temperament from Pavlovsky. I found it a little bit simplistic, if you want to call it. The theory of genetic inferiority arose in America with the inflow of poor and educated immigrants from Eastern and Southern Europe. The melancholic child, the sanguine child, the phlegmatic, the choleric child. I personally, in my limited experience, I have found out that they're somewhat accurate, but I wouldn't dare put them as a finished thought, as an undisputable theory. And really, I just skimmed through that text. After that, we saw Kulsik work on Gurdjieff, an introduction to his teachings. That was very long and very satirical, very theosophical. You could see the traces of Bahramic beliefs, reincarnation, the cosmogony presented was fantastious. No, I'm making up a word. It was it's really hard to believe. But he did say a couple of, he was quoted as saying a couple of really remarkable things, like the chase after ephemeral happiness and pleasures. Talks about, that we are the main obstacle in our happiness and the acquisition of happiness. But also refers to the children as we must destroy our buffers. Children have none. therefore we must become like little children. The word buffers and Gurdjieff kind of come together. It talks about the Kunda buffer and in some depth other concepts. This Kunda buffer is a buffer that keeps us from dying of anxiety. If we were realistic, quote unquote, we could see our fatality daily, hourly, and that would drive us mad. So Kunda buffer is a buffer, as it says. It's the apparatus that permeates us away from this anxiety. Gurdjieff's take on things seems very exoterical, as I have mentioned it, bordering with the cult. It was really hard to follow it, but I know he meant it well, that his legacy does live on, and needs to be simplified perhaps, or refurnished with more solid scientific arguments. And then Montessori, the legacy of Montessori, it might be seen simple, but Montessori discovered the child. It is her appreciation of the child, her understanding that society has viewed children as unfinished adults, and should not be the case. Children are children. They learn perfectly as children. They should not be forced to learn an adult way. Through discipline and repetition. Even though repetition is a key part, repetition in the way of mechanical, there's a better word. Montessori seemed revolutionary, and she perhaps is. The differentiation between development and growth. Development is growth directed towards the production of an organism in accordance with a predetermined design. However, the idea that developmental and maturational aspects of behavior are predetermined and therefore exclusively the result of growth process is widespread and wrongly. Alongside all the readings and all the material that we have to go through, there were instances daily of essays, preparation for this reflective essay. Here I have an example. I listened to Soledad and I sang. And this we did it at the holistic roadmap, the homelessness in part purpose. This one when we were reading the Waldorf thing, but full human development. We've seen a gravitating point, a gravitating center in alternative pedagogies, and wish we could implement it at the macro level, that we could adjust our north. I do not want a school that is free, quality, it's just going to repeat this education that comes from the illustration. I want a school that teaches children to think, to critically think, that teaches them to interact and change their surroundings. And the more I learn about it, the more I'm convinced, the more I know I need to keep studying. So with that, I'm going to wrap up this journal entry. See you later. Hope you enjoyed. Bye-bye.